Okay, and welcome everyone. It's your host again, Colin Heim, your operator instructor with U.S. Virgin Islands Chess. We are on the other side, guys. Congratulations, we've made it to over 30 videos of my own personal chess games on the online FIDE World Chess Arena. And this game happened to be played just this morning. Today's December 21st, year 2020, Anno Domini. And let's get right into this English opening. Englische Eröffnungen. For those who actually speak German, guys, let me know if you guys happen to speak any German, or if you guys want to hear something in Spanish. I'm pretty fluent in Spanish, not perfect, but nearly fluent in German. So if you guys want to hear something other than English, I prefer not to talk too much in a Grecian dialect, although I have that as well. Let's now proceed with the game here. Okay. So my opponent here, I believe, from Greece. So we have a Grecian opponent here with white pieces. Let's look at it from white's perspective here, guys. The English opening: c4, f6, g3. I think this is a Catalan transposition from the English, but I'll check and see exactly what this is. You guys can also check on Lichess. If you guys open up the analysis board, you can also find out for yourselves what the exact name of this opening is. But so far in English, knight to c3, bishop to g7, and bishop to g2 square. Okay. c6 now played by myself, so going for like a partial Caro-Kann. Caro-Kann with c6 pawn, but not really a Caro-Kann since e4 was not played. Except now we see e3. e5, now played by black, myself, conducting black on the other side. And bishop from g to e2, the best move in the position. Okay, so short castles now played by myself. Well, better than short castles with potentially just d5 in this position. The computer likes a lot. But let's go for long castles, should we not. And now d4, so white striking in the center. So looking pretty good for white. White is almost completely developed. Black has still not developed any pieces here on the queen side, rook, knight, and light square bishop on c8. So now we see e captures on d4, played by myself, and now e captures on d4 from white as well. Rook to e8, getting the rook on the open e file, also going along the king's file here, the e file, and now just short castles, played by my opponent. Short castles now evading the rook on the e file. And now d5. Okay, so d5 now striking in the center. And this has all been seen before in the database. I looked at it myself. And now after c captures on d5, knight captures on d5. Let's go through this exchange variation now. C captures on d and bishop to e3, now played by white. Well, I think the engine here likes knight to f4. I think knight to f4 was best. And just giving, my opponent here just wanted to give more coverage to the d4 pawn, which I guess is okay, because it kind of develops the light squared bishop, and now my opponent wanted to play rook to c1, that's why developing the light squared bishop. But let's go through here and now find out where black can strike after bishop to e6, and now playing knight to f4. Okay, so knight to f4 is recommended on the previous move order, but now my opponent deciding to play it now shortly thereafter, I got my light squared bishop on the queen side developed to the e6 square. So partner now to move after queen to b6, and now the fight is really over the d4 square. And my opponent captured my light squared bishop here as the knight was planted on f4. So now capturing with the f pawn, opening up the f file for team black, and now b3. Okay. So now slow playing it, as there is no other way to make defense for the d4 pawn. And yes, now black strikes in the center, guys. Okay, do we understand now? Move 16, bishop takes d4. And now another exchange variation here in the center. Bishop into d4, queen into d4, and queen captures and knight captures. Okay. So black is up a pawn. Black has two connected center pawns, whereas white has 5 pawns. And yeah, there are basically no pawns in the center for team white. So this looks just a lot better for black, despite white having a light squared bishop planted on g2. And now there is a solid knight. Oh, horse on d4, controlling a lot of squares in this position. Okay, so we saw rook to c7 now, my opponent getting to the 7th rank with white pieces, which is something that we talk about, of course, in a lot of my videos, guys. Now, obviously going after b7 pawn. And b6, and rook to d1, now attacking the knight. Knight gets to go to b5, another great outpost. Maybe eventually wanting to get to somewhere like a3, but for now just attacking that rook that got lifted to the 7th rank to attack originally the b pawn that now got pushed to b6. So now rook goes back to c6 now, and forcing the exchange here. There are no squares to go to. The only safe move in the position is just to capture, and I knew this. So after we see captures, now bishop to h3, and there is pressure now on the e6 pawn. Guys, find the best move for black in this position after I give everyone a couple of seconds without previewing the algebraic notation below the virtual analysis board. Find the best move for black in the position. What did you find? Pause the video. Yes, fine. King to f7. King to f7 is perfect. Yeah, you don't need to go further than that. It just defends the pawn, and as we see, there are really no available checks anywhere here along the f-file, for example. Okay, so we saw rook to e1 now played by my opponent, now putting more pressure. Now there's a double attack, and knight going back to d5, hopping defends perfectly. So now probably the most logical move in the position by white now, just going to attack the dark horse now on d5, and yeah, so then we saw knight to f3, and now there is no longer a double attack on the e6 pawn, and that's a check to the white king, and after that my opponent played king to g2, attacking the dark knight, and the knight went back to g5 square. And in this position, my opponent wanted to keep the light squared bishop on the board, so that's why he played bishop to g4, but now h5. Okay, h5 is coming, and this is a very instructional endgame, being up 1 pawn and 2 center pawns for black. Let's show how to win this, and make white learn from a loss in this English opening with c4 and knight f6. Bishop e2 dropping back, and now moving up to my opponent's 2nd rank. So guys, I mentioned for the black pieces it's the 2nd rank, for white pieces it's the 7th rank. A very dangerous rank when you have the opportunity to do so. Now playing bishop to d3, attacking on c2. But now it's obvious, per usual, just rook captures on a2 in this position. h4 now attacking the knight once more, and the knight can jump to e4, and that's okay. I wasn't afraid about double pawns here, guys, on the e-file as far as it goes. And let's go over why. Because after rook to b2 and rook captures e4, I get to recapture now on b3 with Team Black, and now Black is up 2 pawns in this position. There are 2 passed pawns there on the queen side. We have a7 and b6, and at any moment the engine just loves to push, saying it'd be best if you just push to a5. Well, not at this moment, but eventually. Not in this position. The best move, guys, without looking at the algebraic notation again, I would pause the video and now find the best move for black in this position. If you had this over the board, what would you do? Most of the times in chess, when we get these sorts of positions, these rook-pawn endgames, it's best to just play instinctually and go with, you know, your chess prowess, you know, your natural insight. And it turns out the best move is just captures on g4, right? And after my opponent not capturing first, just throwing a check on f4, and after I slide my king over to e7, now my opponent captures. And now I'm bringing my king more forward, rook to f4 check, king to g7, and rook to g4 now. We got it with rook to b5 now, guys. Rook to a4 now, saying, okay, well, I'm going to start attacking. The best move is just a5, because now there's a b pawn that's giving more coverage and totally protects that a5 pawn without even the rook for black. And king to f3 was played by my opponent, and now offering an exchange. Of course, in this position, my opponent did not take the exchange. Let's see what happens if rook captures and pawn captures. Okay, so black is up 2 pawns in this position, and yeah, I think slow and steady wins the race. I would say. And yeah, so just this is something that would happen. All this, and yeah, I think we can stop here, and we can see why this is just now winning. The king is too far. It's just too great of a distance. Right, we get the point, guys. Okay. Let's take it back now. And finally, after rook to a3, right, not taking the exchange as we mentioned before, guys, now there is a fallen pawn on h4. And it's finished. Black is up here, 3 pawns in this endgame. And king to e2 was played by my opponent, and I played the move king to f3 now, taking a check, but also these split pawns here in the middle of the board on the king side needed to be protected. So anyways, now rook to g3 now, allowing the attack on the g pawn, but now swinging over for a check, king to d2, and king to f5, rook to b3, and now rook sliding over again. And it was in this position that my opponent here offered a draw. Kindly decline. I told the sir, I said, no, I will proceed to this winning endgame. Thank you very much. And I kindly proceeded with king to e5, denying the draw offer. Rook to g3 now, just attacking g6 pawn, and now sliding the rook over to f4 again. So just a lot of movement here, and now black is up 3 pawns in this rook endgame. Rook to b2 and rook g5 check, king to d6, rook to g8, and b5. And we could stop here, guys. This is where the game terminated. And your host, Colin Heim, your operator and instructor, guys, finished this game off against a Grecian opponent. And I played this game at about 7 o'clock this morning and stopped playing. As, yeah, I usually win 1-2 games in a row and then, you know, stop without getting too ahead of myself. And I get to share these analytics, these virtual tutorials with you guys. And it's been a pleasure, and I hope to keep giving you guys more in the future. Feel free to rewind this video and look at all the tactics and all the plays. Maybe the middle game to try and find out how black ended up +1 in the endgame. Just up a pawn with 2 center pass pawns and very easily able to convert against Team White. So thank you, everyone. Happy holiday season again, and we will see everyone on the other side once more. And good luck with your chess online and over the board. Stay safe, stay happy, and this is your host signing off for now. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye for now.